So, in case you haven't heard, some significant news has recently come out. We're getting a brand new Legacy of Kain graphic novel. It's called Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise. The book has been given the green light by Crystal Dynamics, who are collaborating with new multimedia company BitBot Media to reintroduce fans and newcomers to the series. Although Crystal Dynamics are providing creative direction and promises the graphic novel is canon, the project isn't directly funded by them. Instead, it's going to be crowdfunded on Kickstarter. While personally I would have preferred a faithful remake of the original Blood Omen and Soul Reaver 1, I won't deny this has me excited. It's been over 20 years since Legacy of Kain Defiance was released. Since then, there's been the odd cancelled spin-off or multiplayer game, but nothing akin to a true sequel or remake. All that changes with the publication of this book, which, as I understand, will be an official prequel to 1999's Soul Reaver, following Raziel during his human years, and how he came to be a vampire serving under Kain. Initially, I wasn't going to talk about this, but then the cover art dropped, and I immediately started speculating. So I wanted to make this video to share my thoughts and theories about the book's story, and what direction I hope the writers and artists will take with these characters. First and foremost, let's talk about who the female vampire is in this image. According to an article released by Crystal Dynamics, the graphic novel promises to debut a mysterious vampire character with deep connections to both Raziel and Kain. It would appear then that the woman featured here is most likely the new major vampire. What I find most striking is her design. Notice how similar her features are to the elder Kain. Lead artist for the games, Daniel Kabuko, has said Kain's evolutionary path was influenced by his arrogance, which led to his skin tone turning gold, and the bones of his forehead and ears protruding upwards into a crown-like shape. I find it interesting that this new character would share those specific features, given that they are a reflection of how Kain sees himself as a god emperor. One possibility is that she was sired by Kain sometime before or during his empire, and that she inherited those aspects of his appearance, perhaps becoming his queen, though truthfully, I doubt this is the case. The game manual for the first Soul Reaver makes it clear that Kain snared 6 souls to be his lieutenants, who forged the legions that subjugated Nosgoth. At no point was there ever any mention of a 7th, unique vampire, nor was there any sign that one existed. For example, even after Raziel's execution in the Abyss, no effort was made by the remaining clans to completely erase all trace of Raziel's existence from Nosgoth. Indeed, we can still see evidence of his symbol in his former territory, and his flag remained in the sanctuary of the clans, despite his execution and the fall of his clan. One would think then that the same logic can be applied to the female vampire as well. Although it's possible that this person existed during the height of Kain's empire, I think it's far more likely she's from an earlier point in Nosgoth's history. Specifically, I reckon she's from the era some 500 years before Blood Omen, during the height of the Sarafan's crusade. It's said Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise, will explore Raziel's career as a Sarafan warrior, charting his human life. At this time in the story, there are plenty of second-generation vampires around. When the ancient vampires were rendered sterile by the Hilden, they sought a way to continue their bloodline by transforming humans into vampires themselves. These new vampires flourished and began to turn others, eventually growing so numerous that the humans were forced to create the Sarafan Order to deal with them. The new character could be a direct offspring of Janos Audron, or may have been turned by Vorador. This would make the hardened skin and crown-shaped forehead plausible, as long as sufficient time has passed for her to have evolved and developed such features. I mean, just look at how monstrous Vorador is. He is depicted as an old, highly evolved vampire with spikes on his chin and jaw, a far cry from his appearance when he was a human blacksmith. Since we know that at least part of the story will take place in the Sarafan era, I'm eager to see if we will learn more about how Raziel came to loathe the vampire race. In my earlier video on the Sarafan lore and history, I theorised that Raziel was indoctrinated into the Order at a young age. That his hatred for the vampires was nurtured by the Sarafan, who encouraged Raziel to develop his skills and channel his contempt towards the enemy. But now, I'm wondering whether there was some tragic event that shaped his personality. Perhaps something terrible happened in Raziel's past, which set him on the course to becoming an arrogant zealot who takes pleasure in committing indiscriminate acts of violence. Let's not forget that the human Raziel is a horrible human being.
No, vampire. This is where it ends, but you won't be leaving this room. Now, let's finish this. I'll make it mercifully quick. As you did for Janos? No, that beast had eluded us for far too long. It would have been a shame to end him too quickly. It's ironic, really. The great Janos Ordrin turned out to be no challenge at all. Thanks to you. Did you hear his cowardly screams when I tore that black heart out of his carcass?
Recent comments from the writers of the graphic novel confirm that they plan to reveal more of Raziel's backstory and motivations. In a statement, writer Joshua Viola has said that Raziel's story spans centuries, offering rich material to explore. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise not only fills in the gaps, but fleshes out his character in surprising ways, revealing what shaped him into the Raziel we know and love. We have lots of surprises in store beyond the graphic novel that will blow fans' minds. And co-writer Angie Hodap added that it was important to Josh and me to find, after 20 years, the right place and time to re-enter this world. We wanted to find new stories about these characters that felt organic to the original canon, stories that would excite longtime fans of the games, with plenty of familiar elements, while also inviting new fans to join in. With that in mind, and with the directive from Crystal Dynamics to introduce new characters while keeping our story lens tight on the known cast, Josh and I explored Raziel's past, specifically his human past and the genesis of his wings in the days before Kain cast him into the abyss. It will be interesting to see if there was a critical moment in Raziel's past that had a powerful influence on his life and pushed him towards a path of cold-blooded righteousness. If these comments from the writers are anything to go by, then I expect we're going to learn a great deal more about Raziel's human side. Also, I'm curious as to whether this new female vampire had a part to play in Raziel's backstory. Finally, I like to discuss the possibility of certain characters crossing paths, which might make for some surprising interactions. In Soul Reaver 2, the story is given to us from the Wraith Raziel's perspective. Since we mostly see what he sees, there's a chance that the human Raziel might interact with the Elder Kain. After Raziel is propelled into Nosgoth's ghastly future by Mobius, the two share a small scene together before the ruined mountain sanctuary of Janos Ordrin.
Oh no. Every time you turn up, something monumental and terrible happens. I don't think I have the stomach for it.
No drama this time, Raziel.
You are persistent, crossing time like this to follow me. Still waiting for that coin of yours to land on its edge.
I'm biding my time.
The next time we see Kain is when he saves Raziel and prevents his soul from entering the Reaver. We don't know how Kain journeyed back in history to this moment, though the expectation is he was simply following and watching his former lieutenant while waiting for the precise moment to act. As we don't really know for sure what Kain was doing between these two scenes, it's entirely possible that we may get a moment between the Elder Kain and human Raziel, or some other significant characters. What really impresses me with Soul Reaver 2 is how it builds upon the story of previous games by recontextualizing scenes from the original Blood Omen. Those moments added so much to the game's mythology. If the writers can provide something similar to what Amy Hennig achieved in Soul Reaver 2, then I'll be satisfied. But it's important they do it in a way that respects the original lore and characters. When I'm reading this novel, I want to hear Simon Templeman and Michael Bell's voices in my head as Kain and Raziel. For that to happen, we need to have eloquent prose and engrossing dialogue that stays true to their characters. It will be tough to pull off, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I hope those making the novel have tried to reach out to Amy for her suggestions and feedback, or at the very least, carefully reviewed her writing for these games. Apparently, the book will include concept art by Daniel Kabuko, so if he's involved as well, that would be great. You know, Legacy of Kain has had its share of comic books in the past. I felt the Soul Reaver prequel comic that featured the vampire Raziel in a short story prior to his execution was quite lacking. This is because it only retold the story of Soul Reaver in a prophecy to Raziel before the events took place. Hopefully the writers don't go down that route, as I would really like to see a more compelling account on Raziel's human past, the birth of the clans, and the expansion of Kain's empire. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this new graphic novel. What are your expectations? Is there anything that concerns you so far? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Thank you, as always, for watching. Let's see where this graphic novel takes the series. If it's well received, this may just be a stepping stone for Crystal Dynamics to commit to remaking all the Legacy of Kain games. I suppose time will tell.
Now at last, the masks had fallen away. The strings of the puppets had become visible, and the hands of the Prime Mover exposed. Most ironic of all was the last gift that Raziel had given me. More powerful than the sword that now held his soul, more acute even than the vision his sacrifice had accorded me. The first bitter taste of that terrible illusion.